All right, we're talking to Charles McKay today, author of Smart Real Estate Deals in the Bank Bailout Era and Beyond. Charles, how you doing?
How are you, Kelly Brown?
Great. Good to have you here. Now, tell us about the book.
Well, Smart Real Estate Deals in the Bank Bailout Era and Beyond was written to help homeowners and investors to save money and give them options to help themselves during the financial crisis and situation today.
This whole, the real estate market, everybody knows the recession. It's a mess. I mean, are there opportunities right now, I guess, Charles?
Are there opportunities for real estate investment?
Yeah.
Definitely. There are a number of foreclosures obviously available that are on the market-to-market basis. And in addition, there have been homes and other types of property whose value have been reassessed that are available. And in addition, there are certain parts of the country actually where construction is actually still occurring. So depending on market to market, there are different types of opportunities depending upon who the investor is.
I guess why did you decide to write this book?
First of all, to allow homeowners to save money as well as for investors to find a better way to negotiate the value of real estate assets. And pretty much coming up to the last few years, it's pretty obvious that prices were inflated. When you are obligated to a mortgage, it's a contract. Okay, so it's not something that you can go in and adjust pretty much anytime you want. But if you can negotiate up front and find out all the different places to save money within the contract as well as while negotiating, so saving money when working with the broker as well as saving money with the lender, as well as operational costs in the property, then the investor can save money and increase their personal cash flow.
Now, I guess that leads to the question, how did we get in this mess to begin with? Was it basically people getting loans that couldn't afford the loans? Is that how this whole mess started?
Well, there are a number of different things. Pretty much over the last 5 years, there was a shift in wealth, and which essentially meant that a lot of people weren't saving as much. When that happens, you have pretty much a savings imbalance, and everyone starts to live on credit. And with no savings, there are a lot of businesses and people that start running on credit. And
as a society, we became a little too dependent on the credit cards and just credit in general.
Correct. And in addition, I mean, there was a little, financial innovation during that, pretty much during that time. So there was financial innovation for consumers, and there was financial innovation for businesses, as well as financial innovation for investors. And neither one of them were monitored or kind of.
So we were missing some safeguards,
right?
Keeping an eye on both sides.
Exactly. With those things happening, essentially the demand went up.
Yeah.
So if you make it easier for someone to get credit, then there's going to be an increase in demand. And with the increase in demand, then the value of the asset, it's easier for it to go up or for people to bid on it. And when you're obligated and you're setting a contract, then you're obligated until that contract is fulfilled.
What changes are we starting to see, or what changes have come about? Are there more safeguards, and are we seeing the real estate industry bounce back at all?
It's bouncing back in certain markets. Okay, so in particular markets, certain things have remained the same. And if you're talking about bouncing back, are you specifically talking about the price on assets?
Are the problems that caused this whole mess being acted upon?
It's being acted upon on a number of fronts. So there's some instances where banks are saying, okay, well, perhaps this asset is overvalued. And in those cases, there's a negotiation. Also, there's pretend and extend. And pretend and extend is pretty much something where banks are realizing that based on this contract, it's really difficult to fulfill, but what we're going to do is we're going to extend the loan.
Okay.
Which gives the consumer the opportunity to increase their cash flow and not to be at credit risk.
So I
much.
guess I'm a novice at it, but they're not foreclosing as fast as they were. They're giving people an opportunity, a couple more years here and there to pay what they owe.
Well, there's some new programs. So some of those programs are one of the ones that I mentioned, but also the government has their own programs as well to give people the opportunity to, let's just say, subsidize the loan.
Now, what about strategies in real estate right now? Is what what are the strategies if you want to invest in real estate right now?
Well, there are different ways to get the money for a down payment. There's also a number of different strategies to cut the operational costs. So in the book, Smart Real Estate Deals in the Bank Bailout Era and Beyond, there are other options other than banks or traditional lenders to get the money for down payment, which is the larger hurdle for most investors. Secondly, within purchasing or owning the property, there are a number of different, let's say, green material alternatives that a person can use and leverage to increase their household cash flow, and particularly in the electric bill as well as your water bill and your overall heating costs.
So that's something else you talk about in the book, Real Estate Investors, Green and Cleaner Energy. Now, how does that tie in?
Well, it definitely ties in because what green and cleaner energy does is it's cheaper and it's an alternative source to heat and cool your home. And it ties in because it allows the investor and the homeowner to save money.
Obviously, the end game.
Which is definitely the end game, and which will, over the long term, help improve, let's say, a credit rating, or will, let's say, increase your cash flow such that you're not spending as much money.
The name of the book, again, by the way, Smart Real Estate Deals in the Bank Bailout Era and Beyond by Charles McKay. Charles talking to us today. And you have a website you wanted to throw out there, right?
Yeah, the name of the website is smartrealestatedeals.net.
Smartrealestatedeals.net. What are some of the other things you talk about in the book? TARP.
Right.
For somebody who doesn't know what that is, tell me what it is.
Well, it's the Toxic Assets Relief Program, and it's a program that the United States Treasury put into place to help get rid of or ease a lot of the toxic assets that are on the market. And a lot of people don't understand, say, how that happened. Well, it happened for a couple of reasons. One of the reasons why these things became problems was because a lot of the institutional investors that bet on margin or invested on margin lost a lot of money.
Those are the people that were wagering on how the market was going to do,
right?
Essentially.
Exactly. And secondly, there are assets that are on a market that were invested in that couldn't be monitored and tracked. So what that means is that typically what happened, let's say a few years ago, was someone like a mortgage broker, they gave you a loan, they had the loan on their books, then they sold it to Wall Street. And there were these securities that were put together and were called tranches. And essentially it's supposed to track the cash flows. Well, if you're not making as much money or if someone loses their job, then they can't meet their mortgage obligation. And if something is packaged in a particular way, then the value can actually decrease if it's not monitored.
Are we headed towards a real estate market that is fair for both sides? I mean, it seems like people were getting loans that couldn't afford it, and people giving those loans were taking advantage of perhaps people who couldn't afford it as well. I mean, we're going to head where you want to look at the classic America where somebody bought a home, was able to get a loan. It was a fair loan, and they were able to pay it off. Are we coming back to that? Or what do we need in your opinion, to come back to that?
Well, there's a little self-help, okay? And some of the self-help is within the book, Smart Real Estate Deals in the Bank Bailout and Beyond, because it lets you know essentially what you're signing up for. So it lets you know what the interest rate is going to be and what essentially the lender's profit is going to be by purchasing a house, and letting you know realistically what's affordable based on your gross income.
In your opinion, they've taken steps? I mean, are we going to be on the upswing?
I think pretty much we've seen the bottom. I think with increased competition among businesses, if we continue to compete with competitors abroad, that will bring on more jobs. And with more jobs, then the consumers are going to have more money to spend. And so that's two portions of the gross domestic product that would actually increase. The third being the government, but we can't talk about that. But with those two, then that will increase consumption. And with increased consumption, the economy will be on the upswing.
Now you cover a software program that you invented called Leverage for Real Estate. What's that all about?
All right, Leverage for Real Estate Investment is a software application that's for homeowners and investors, and it will take them essentially through a financing scenario so that they can maximize profits and save money on their real estate investment. So it's pretty much like a real estate investment banker wrapped up in software. What happened was we essentially took the experience of really savvy real estate